In this video lesson, we're gonna discover how we can set up the printing for our project that we started in previous lesson. And as you can see here, I am watching at many different views. So this is the model view. This is the start panel, which I'm just gonna close and just gonna expand this a little bit just to show you like we have a difference from the part where we create or draw and the part where we start to set the printing. So you can see this looks like a A4 sheet of paper and it's in landscape mode. So this is also precisely 1 to 100 scale. So this is really important for architects and people who work in construction to have the exact measures and also the annotations in the measures, but also the right scale, which is usually 1 to 100. So let's get back to the previous lesson. I'm going to close everything here and I'm going to just open up the previous lesson or lesson 13. So in here we work with the layers and we work with a folder creating our base draft. Now let's define this drawing to use it in the printing, in the 2D printing. So this will be my lesson 14, and we're going to proceed from what we left off in the previous lesson. So let's refine a little bit this drawing. You can put a representation here of furnishing and many things like toilet or bathroom, bedroom, etc. But we're gonna stay with a few lines. If you want to continue, once you understand how you can do it, you can just go by yourself. Essentially, we work in a draft workbench. So let's go back to the draft workbench. We set up the grid. We use the snap, the various snaps at our disposal, and also we saw the importance of working with layers well in for three main things. So the first thing is because we can distinguish clearly all the different parts of our design, whether it's architecture or product design or whatever. We can distinguish the various pieces or elements. So we have external walls, internal walls, and fixtures, doors, windows, curtain walls, etc. So that's the first reason. The second reason is that because when we go in 3D, we can extrude this in different pieces, in different parts. So that's also a good advantage instead of using just one single drawing in one single layer. And then the third is because when we have layers, we can define, if we go here in the manage layer manager, we can define different line widths, and these are important where we go to printing. So if you print with colors, you can use colors and you can distinguish things using colors. But when you gonna print, everything is gonna be black and white usually. So to distinguish the various parts, you need to distinguish them using the width. So the most important things will be we're gonna have a something that is going to be like 4 or 5, so something really strong as a thickness, so really thick. And then we are going to have like probably doors and windows a little less thick. And then also interior walls I will probably put 4 because they're steel walls, so they're going to be visualized really thick. But there are also other elements that we will not go into sections. So we see this really thick for the walls and the various elements because we are creating a section and we are visualizing like half of the wall. It's like we are cutting, and so the line is pretty strong. But everything that is not cut by the section in the plan view is going to be really, really thin. So for example, the things that are on the pavement or like furnishing, things like that, they're going to be less thick than this. So let's create a new layer. And let's assume I need to do something that is on the ground. So I can call this like on the ground or like non-section, something like this, or not section. You can call this however you want. So this is going to be really thin. Let's put this 1. And also visually, you can use a color that is not as strong as the other. So this one here could be fine. Let me just double click here and choose another color. Now you can use the picker here. You can also pick a color on the screen. So I can pick this gray, for example, and I can then adjust the code here, the hue, the saturation, and the value to create a certain color. I can use also the red, the green, and the blue, and I can come up with a specific color using RGB. Also, I can use the hexadecimal numbers here. So let's assume I want a dark kind of purple blue thing. So I can add this to my custom color. Remember to select like an empty slot if you don't want to override the existing one. So add. Okay, you can always, for example, pick back the red by clicking here and then using the pick on the screen and get that back there once again. So, well, once we have this as a color, want to choose this, I say, okay, there you go. So I have the thickness. I don't need to put like dashed or any of these type. I'm going to keep it solid line, draw style, and then line color, face color. I don't need it right now, which is like the feeling inside. And then transparency is fine. Line print color usually is going to have a black color. So this is going to be our new layer. Now you can also create layers or do some operation with layers if you go in the hierarchy in the model panel in the tree. So you can right click and you can add a new layer from here. So let's add a new one, and where it's going to go, well, it's going to go here in the top layer. So I'm going to double click. I can give the name right here. So I'm going to call this annotation or measurements. Okay, and you can also define the layer properties down here in the properties panel, in the view, and in the data sometimes. Well, this is just the label, and if you want you can put this in a group or just leave it outside. And these are the again the parameters. So for this, again, I don't want this to be too strong, so let's go for a green and then we'll figure it out. So that's going to be our measurements layer. So we have non-section and measurements layer. So with the, and I can still define the layer from here. So you either use this management panel here, or you can use the manage layers panel. It's the same thing, just, you know, put in different ways. Okay, so if I want to now create some non-section geometry here or drawing, I can select here non-section, or I can click and select another layer. So non-section, and let's draw, for example, here in the glass, in the window, you have glass, but you also have a part that is a non-section. So it's going to be pretty thin, barely visible because it's kind of on the ground. We can also adjust it later if it's, and let's turn off the grid also so we can see a little bit better. So we can see that really barely visible line. And also here, when you change a room, if you change the material of the ground, you need to change here also with the line. So you can also use like a hatch here and another hatch here, or a fill here and another fill here. So you may want to distinguish with this little edge. And also when you come inside your house, you're probably gonna have here to distinguish the inside and the outside. So that's the edge. And also here, if you have a curtain wall, you're probably gonna have something like a mullion or a frame at the bottom, and you can visualize it like this. Now this is a really simple drawing. We are like scale 1 to 100, so we don't need many details, and we're gonna keep it like this. Okay, now what about the measurement? So again, I can select here and then click here, and it's gonna go directly in the measurements layer, and then I start to do some measurements. So I can still use the grid because that's handy, or I can use the endpoints to snap, and the grid to position every line here to the correct distance. And well, this is already looking good, but this is because I created these settings here. We have a style that we can define in here, and right now I can choose to use a style that is this one here, which I actually created, but we have preset styles here. So if you have a preset style and you want to